I got a really nice comment from Robin that I want to address. And it's weird. I don't know how to say it, but I feel protective when I read the comment, like fatherly figure sort of a thing. If you're into Kundalini yoga and you've got your heart set on that as the meaning of life, you may not like this video. So I just sign off. I'm going to poke some holes in some Western things going on here. But first I want to talk to this comment because there's a part of it that's just wonderful. All of this really is... We're living through our mental experiences and our emotional experiences, and we need to get a hold of that stuff. So how do we do it? Kundalini is something that is meant to help us get there. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. It's a rabbit hole that I went down and I really explored. And I'm going to tell you what, there's some wild stuff in Hinduism. All right, before I get into that, let me go ahead and read what she has going on. I've split it into two parts because I want to address it in two parts. The Kundalini one is a huge story. But here's how it starts. Hi, I rewired my brain. I love to hear that. Constantly using positive statements of love and compassion and acceptance. I took control of all of my thoughts, and if I thought something negative or judgy, I said to myself, I love myself so much, I have so much self-compassion. I love my silly little ego and all of her funny thoughts. Then I'd say it's not a problem whatsoever. This was constant for 2 months. I came to a certain level of acceptance, and lo and behold, my pineal gland became active. I didn't expect that or even want that. It happened. I am also going through a Kundalini awakening. I spend a lot of time in my body. Okay, let's talk about that. All right, anybody not familiar with the verbiage, spending time inside your body, you might think, well, everybody does that. What she's referring to there and what we refer to talking about that is keeping your focus, your mental, your conscious awareness inside of what you have going on in your body, not just looking out there and forgetting about what's up here, but going and addressing what is up here and spending time in there with that. So it's a way of just, it's an analog for saying I am focused on my inner self and my inner being. Yeah, that's what that means. Okay, the next term she started right off with, hi, I rewired my brain. That's analogous. What do? We didn't go in there and, pull out plugs and patch things around and do all that kind of stuff. We didn't physically rewire a brain. What happens is the brain gets wired. When we are infants, we don't have any memories. We don't live through anything. We're kind of devoid. When we start developing memories, we are living through those memories now. We know what to do with, I ate a banana yesterday, I want another one today. We begin to start picking up things that we are living through. That is wiring our brain. You might be raised in a nurturing home or in a very abusive home. You are getting wired that way. What that means is your neural pathways are growing in such a way that is going to become the basis of your automatic reaction right there. So when you're born and you don't have control over that, at some point in time later, you realize, that's what happened. My perceptions and what happened to me in life is what I'm living through. I have to change that. I'm going to look at things. I'm going to do forgiveness. I'm going to do all the mental steps necessary to overwork these things. Then you're no longer living through the pain and the shame of those things because the pain and the shame are gone. The pain and the shame when they're in place, the judgments, the sense of self-worth, all of those things are wiring that we believe, and we have to change that belief right there. So the rewiring means that. It means taking your perceptions and changing the way they are to the point that you are now convinced. You don't just say, I'm a worthless piece of shit. No, I'm not. Then you go back inside and go, I'm a worthless piece of shit. There's a point where this inside part has to change. Well, you saying something isn't enough. It has to be something that takes place in the inner level so that never occurs. No, I'm not a piece of shit. I'm okay. That's when the rewiring takes place. And so as she's going through and doing that positive affirmation, that's what is going on right there. She's talking about that whenever the judgment comes up, the things come up, she stops and catches that. And that's exactly what we need to do. I will make comparisons across the board. I swear this material is so prevalent in the background, people have no idea. If you were to read something from modernity, Don Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements, what these are is the agreements. What the wiring are our agreements. If you read that little book, we're deciding, I had this experience and now I believe this. That's an agreement. I had this experience, now I believe and I feel this way about it. We're wiring in that process right there. It's just the way we live life and how we live through our mental experiences. What else can you live through? All right, so now I want to talk about a couple of things here, and I understand, and I totally believe what she said, but we need to understand that everybody's experience is going to be different. I could never do what she did right there. I could never in my life just try to say positive things to myself, and it made my life better. I was so trashed. I had so much anger, so much hurt, so much confusion, so many things unresolved, so many beatings, so many whippings, so many, you're a piece of, so much of that to work through. I could, no amount of, I'm just going to be okay, was ever going to work. I cut my brother out of the tree as a 9-year-old after he hung himself. There was some bad stuff in my head. I want to say right up front, I've got that resolved today. And in the end, it was good that I had that bad stuff, because if I didn't have to resolve it, I wouldn't have learned what I've learned in this material. It saved my life. Ultimately, what I found saved my life. I do want to say I wish I didn't lose a brother in the process. Okay, I want to say something else about the mind. We need to understand this. That's also the level of our perceptions. Imagine this. Imagine taking two kids in very similar homes, the same age, same kind of situation, and both of them are molested by a brother. Or brother or sister play around, something like that. Maybe it's not molestation, something somehow. At any rate, one family could, brother and sister could work it out and say, you know what, we're just kids, we played house, let's just understand that that's the way it is and be okay. While another two might just hate each other forever and never have it resolved for the same situation. It was the exact same event that happened, but it's the way that it's maintained in the mind that continues to affect the individual. So we can't just say, well, these are the level of what things happen. This is why it gets so personal. It isn't about what is right or wrong. It is about what hurts you. What hurts you? What affects your life? You must resolve your stuff. Right here, this is the ought against your brother, that if not resolved is why you don't leave your gift at the altar looking for graces. But when you do resolve, the graces happen automatically. You see that? So as you're listening to people and the whole frequency change, we're going to get into that and how to look at the frequency. We can look at the frequency here. Those guys don't know how to look at frequencies. In fact, if they're using the terms raising and lowering frequencies, I can tell you right now they don't know what they're doing. We're not going to use those terms. There's something different going on. What does it mean to raise a frequency? I raised my frequency. Does that mean you glow violet now instead of blue, or that you sound like this, beep, instead of this, boop? What does it mean that you raised your frequency? Those are just words. How do I interact with that? All right, I looked at a bunch of videos and I wanted to download some stuff, and I just, there's too much there, honestly. Hinduism is made on the same template as everything else. Okay, there is no teaching at the core that is any different than something you would find elsewhere. In fact, I say these things and they just sound like claims. It's honestly so big it's just hard to get into it all. But if you were to read the Bhagavad Gita and you were familiar with the steps of what would be the healing path, and you become Arjuna and Krishna is your higher awareness and you're in the chariot getting ready to go do battle to get the land back from your early family, what you're going to see is the same story elements there is like Jason having to go back and defeat his uncle to get his kingdom back from someone who wouldn't give it back to him when he was supposed to. That we begin to see elements in here that you go, yeah, this is following that same pattern. And he surveys the battle line back and forth, and in the end he despairs and doesn't go. We had a calling and a refusal of the call, with the higher awareness even telling him, Arjuna, it's up to you to do the work. I can't do it. Consciousness, you have to involve yourself. I am the higher awareness. I can help you, but I can't do the work. You have to. It's right there. It's common. Don't tell that to billions of Hindus. That's the way it works. When you get to the inside, you find it's a pretty rare place. And I say this sometimes, so I try to be careful not to be too repetitive in videos, but if you take a story like this, I am Arjuna, or my consciousness at that time becomes whoever the called person is, Jason from the Argonauts. And the story represents an inward path. And I must, the land that I must get back, that is owned by someone else represents the idea that I'm going back to defeat my early self to get back my mind space, that I'm not living in compliance with the way that I want to. So when you look at those and you see that those are the concepts that are in there, that's what you're looking for, to see the similarities in the background. The stories don't sound the same. You know, a dog tied to a tree does not sound like a tetherball on a pole, does it? Yeah, they kind of do. Look for that "yeah, they kind of do" part. When I started looking at all of that stuff in the third eye and the pineal gland and all that stuff, I started looking at its source, Hinduism. I've got this idea in my head that if I'm going to work with something, I want to know everything about it. I want to know its inner workings. I don't want to go approach something and have to have somebody else guide me on what to do. I want everybody out of the way, and I want to be an expert for myself. So I get really into it. Where does this come from? You tell me that. Why? How? How does it work? There's a point where people have said to me, a lot of people have said to me, "Man, dude, why don't you just, you overanalyze it. You ask too many questions. Why don't you just go with the flow?" And here's the difference between the very common people or the rare seeker. Your head is sitting there going, how come you guys don't think and figure things out? How come you just do what somebody else tells you all the time? So they don't know that this is going on, but we do. All right, so if you're a seeker, you're going to dig into something and say, What? So as I'm getting into it, you know, some of the things that alerted me right off the bat, I couldn't get over the idea of the chakras and the way that they portrayed them. I could gather the idea way early on that they might be metaphoric. You know, there's a brain, there's an energy center. Throat, I don't know. Heart, okay. Stomach, yeah, I got feelings. Solar plexus, it starts going into, there's ones that go beyond the actual, you know, the basic chakras that have your anus and all kinds of things in. And I'm like, okay, this is not helping my life. What am I doing? I'm meditating on this stuff. I'm looking at things. They're telling me stuff that's there. And I'm like, you know what? I don't see that. If it's metaphoric, what it ends up being is a place to put your focus, to focus your attention while you're meditating. Okay, so let's back up a minute and talk about the third eye, because that's really what's happening. When we're born, we don't have a third eye. When we're born, we are living from a higher realm, but we don't have a third eye. We don't have a way to experience it yet. What happens is we begin to develop memories, and those memories are the third eye. That's the perception. Our perception are taking in all of these senses, the physical and the emotional sensation from our environment, processing it up here and deciding the quality of that experience. Is it good? Is it bad? I need to be steered someplace. My eyes don't need to differentiate. You know, I don't need to shut off any frequency there. I don't need to shut off the sound frequencies. Yeah, there's things that you're listening to. I hear a bubbling brook. There's fresh water. Ooh, I hear the roar of a lion. That's bad. We're processing that in our third eye. That is growing and developing. But what happens to us today is that all of our life experiences get into there. That is what we're living through, that mass of memories. That is the third eye that we must clear out. So if you know that it's a metaphorical thing that has to do with the bundle of memories that you're living through, it becomes very specifically and directly interactive. If you're thinking it's a pineal gland and calcification or something there, there's nothing that can be done with that. That's very modern stuff with people that don't know what's going on. But here's an important thing. People are not going to seek to the level that I seek. Many people won't. And so the religions and those beliefs become very important for a population to help people get together in a community and to feel good and to work good, just so long as they do it without saying, this is the right way, you need to come over here and do what I'm doing. That's where I run into problems with the people that go, this is the right way. And you're like, yeah, everybody's is the right way if you know what you're doing. If you think your way is the only right way, then you probably don't understand not only their teachings, but yours either. Yeah, exactly. I will say that. Exactly. So I'm looking at Kundalini at some point, and they're saying that if you open up this Kundalini energy flow, it's like this energy somewhere else that's at the base of something that comes up and flows through you. And that if you open this a third eye, that there are, you go find videos on this. I'm not going to post any. It was just too much work. Guys are saying that people can go crazy, that there's some island out there in India that they take people that, it's like an asylum someplace, and they're like, yeah, I wouldn't doubt that many of those people, some of those people that are there because of the Kundalini awakening, that they went crazy and things. And I'm sitting there listening to this going, what the f***? It just sounds crazy. It's supernatural. There are so many gods in Hinduism. This is why it's different and why it's so complicated. The layers get there. You go to Taoism, you follow my work, everything emerges from the same place. Good, bad, everything comes from the same place, right there. That's as simple as it gets. In Abrahamic material, it'll be, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. It's done. You get to Hinduism and it's like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to name everything that comes along. And they're going to give everything a god, too. I have a god of my desk here, a god of the monitor. I hope the god of my camera keeps it running up there. The god of my headphones must be intact. They give everything a god, Pretty soon, there's a god of the sidewalk. There's a god of the river, a god of the bridge. Where are you going to go through? I don't know if it's that crazy, but at some point you realize that's what they're doing. Instead of saying everything comes from here, they just name everything that comes from it, making it thicker. And you go, this is too much to weed through. One time I was excited. I got a good deal. $80, I think, the entire Mahabharata. I bought that thinking, this is going to be a great resource. As I'm getting into material, I realize it's so dense, it's so thick. I barely read any of it. Probably will never get to it in my life. I'm glad I have it there. But yeah, it's really thick stuff. And really it's grabbing something out of there that I think, I don't know what's going on, but I want to explain something. There is a way to feel a good energy. And I want to tell you an experience that I had. This was before I had really started out. This is actually step one. It was long ago and I was having a lot of problems and I was beginning to speculate that the problems that I was having, no matter where I went in life, and I moved from place to place, not long after things were back to the way they were. I was like, what? At some point I'm like, the only thing that's in common with everywhere I go is me. What the hell? I'm starting to look inward. I'm starting to look inward and realize I'm bringing my life with me as I go from place to place. I didn't know what that meant. But I'm gaining some knowledge. I get some information that makes me think that if I tell somebody that I got molested after I ran away from home, that this is something that I was so shameful over, that I felt so bad that if people knew about this, they would think, get away from me, you creepy freak. And, I felt that bad about it. But I thought, I have to somehow get this out of me. And so I talked to a friend and said, can I, we're going to drive out into the desert, someplace where it's quiet and private. And I want to tell you something that I've got I am so scared. And she was like, yeah, okay, let's go ahead and do it. So she's just leaning up against the front of my car. And it's a dirt road out there. I'm just pacing back and forth for, I don't know, it seemed like 10, 15 minutes. I'm caveating why what I'm about to tell her isn't my fault. This happened to me as a kid and I didn't know what to do. And I'm making up excuses for what happened before I can ever get it out of me. All right. So I finally get to a point where it's like, I just have to say it. And I told her what happened, that I was living on the streets. People, you're too young to be out here. Let's bring you in. And then they molested me. And that it was very tragic and it felt really bad. And I looked at her like, okay, here it comes. And she just went, really? That's it? It seems to me I recollect it was about 2 weeks before I felt my feet on the ground. I was so uplifted. Now here's what happens. Think this through. It's a physiological feeling. You get something happen in life and it's tragic and you feel very bad about it. You cry, all kinds of stuff. If you're managed, if you're acknowledged, and if you're helped, you can get past it. If not, if you just have to deal with it, you have to deal with it. And how do you feel? Sometimes it just depresses you. You cry, you're in a funk. Eventually, you get past it. But what has really happened is you're getting accustomed to that lower feeling. You're lowering your energy, but getting used to living at a lower energy level. This is the frequency thing. This is really emotional. You're living at a high emotional level or a low emotional level. Here's how to look at it. Think about your worst, most fearful. If you can imagine anything in your mind that you would never tell anybody, go think about that for a minute and see how it makes you feel emotionally. Now, let it go and go out and stand outside yourself, look out, become that higher awareness. Yeah, I see what happened, and feel that. You see those two different sensations right there? We can manipulate and play with those. This one over here is disconnected. It's at a high frequency. That's in there all the time, but we're consciously living through the lower frequency as our as we're living through the things that we've accumulated. Does that make sense? These are metaphorical things. There's not a physical thing that's going on that's making life different. We're flowing through life in an energy field, in a collective, sensing each other based on the nature of what we hold up here as far as our memories. I had to go back and take the person who abused me and understand what happened, that person was raised abused and that they never got it resolved and that they were repeating the action and that before them that happened and before them, and I could begin to see, I wasn't me. I was the next link in the chain. I can let that go. I see. You poor. All this time I hated you, and really, we're living that same way. I now love you. I got a chance to live, and I got a chance to get out of it, and you never did, and I feel so bad. My mom went through a lot. Can you imagine losing a child that way? And then not knowing, she was so messed up. Yeah. I got nothing but love and compassion for her, but it takes that kind of work for me to clear out my gland. But what happens then? Okay, so when you, I got off course there. So when you unload something like that, what you're doing is you are taking this burden. It's an emotional burden that you've been carrying that gives you your physiological feel in life. You feel weighed down from it. You will feel that way. It is a sensation that we have, that we feel because of the way we're holding it in our brain. We're not actually heavier. You feel that way. You're carrying a psychological burden. If you tell somebody that, suddenly that burden is lifted, and you're not elevating to a new place. You are elevating to a previous place before it happened. Before you got used to that lower one, now you're lifting it up and you're returning back to the higher one. In editing, I want to interrupt this part right here. I'm not very clear at all. This is a specific thing that I did for this memory. This is one technique. The objective is really, you may not need to tell somebody. The objective is this. You have a memory and you have an emotional state with that memory. And by bringing the memory up into your consciousness, you can experience the emotional state of it. That tells you right there how it's stored. You then understand that it is the perception that you are holding of that memory, and that you must now work with that memory in such a way that the perception you're holding becomes released, so that you are no longer grasping that. You're no longer mentally holding on to that memory, which is going to continue to cycle through life. Yeah, it's a decision. It's an agreement. It's a judgment. We'll live through it. And when I told my friend, that was really simply breaking down an incredible barrier of fear that did not create the forgiveness. I still had to work on the forgiveness after that. But that barrier of fear coming down, that was a physiological response. I mean, yeah, that was big. That's how we change our frequencies, by unloading the things that pull us down to a lower frequency. There was nothing else I could ever do. And as Indians are talking about this opening up, or they talk about the third eye, they talk about the chakras, the energy centers, how that they are there in some cases, but are metaphoric, that the energy flows through them. And you know what? If you just think of one chakra up here and think this is one mind's eye, and the flow of life is based on the nature of the quality of what I have stored up here, boom, everything else works. Some people need community, they need more. And always remember, the mind and the central nervous system need to be treated as one in this case. This is like how we sense, how we feel. It's a part of the sensation. If you feel good, it's not just because something up here is a happy thought. It's because your entire body has that sensation. Fear, same thing. Your entire body has it. The central nervous system is being employed with the thinking. Just look at it. You don't need anybody to tell you that. You can change your thinking and change the way you feel. Where does that feel come from? It's not from your skin or your flesh or your bones. It's from the central nervous system. You can have success with something, but if you know the mechanism of why it's working, you can have better success with it. You can approach it in a more direct way. You can approach it in a systematic manner. You now know that, you know what, it is this shame, it is this pain, it is this memory that I can go look at and go, God, if I think about that, I feel. That's exactly how you determine the quality of the memory. Bam, you got it. Use that emotional understanding to know that that is what you must resolve so that you don't feel that way about it anymore. And it's not going to be fast. It's not going to be easy. These flash in the pan, come and clear this, clear that. It's going to help people. It will. It's going to hold them close to finding the path. I want everybody to know that if you do that, go ahead, yeah, but there's a path. There's something more to it. And if you talk to an Indian, they would say, "Oh, be careful." Or, you know, some high-level guru over there, you know, you can go crazy. You can, what, to me, there is, the mind state is what causes suicide. It's not something you play with to just go, here, everybody, you know, go turn inward. I had my things happen, but there are things that happen to people out there that they would look at me and say, buddy, I wish I had yours. You have no idea. You know, it really becomes personal. It becomes for us. We have to find the courage to get our own way through. But at the same time, there are people that would probably go, I did not have that kind of a life. Sorry you did, but I don't need to do all that stuff. And that would be true. Absolutely. There's more to this if you need it and if you find it. If you don't, guess what? It's still here anyway. If you don't find it, you don't understand it, doesn't matter. It's here. Go decalcify the pituitary. I don't know what or the pineal. If I said pituitary before, I mean pineal. Okay. I goof up a lot. I don't always say the right things. Anyway, all right. I wanted to say that because I think what you did was exactly right. What you described, the rewiring, all of that. We live through certain things unless we stop and go, you know what? I can interact with this memory and change its state. And the old material is teaching me that I go address it until this bad, nasty thing has been defeated and now it's put away someplace where it's no longer effective. It's still a memory, but it doesn't hurt me anymore. The forgiveness, all of that stuff to have a better life. Yeah. So I think that what people are doing is looking for ways to feel better and looking for community, and that these serve as that. There's a term I use called seeker, and you can tell who that person is because they will be the kind of person that has done what I have done, where you go down all the rabbit holes. You try them, but you go, something's not right here. You got a mindset that is you're not going to fit. You're seeing something and you're trying something, but these are really the organizations designed to hold the people that go, okay, he said it's there. Hey, the guy said it's there, so it's there. We're not that way. We're going to be like, what? Show me that. I don't get that. I see the effectiveness of it, but I've also gone over here and I've seen them kind of accomplish the same thing, but doing something completely different. You know, they're not meditating on a third eye. They are forgiving the odd against their brother. And clearing the mote out of their eye. I see something going on in here that all needs to be tied together. And when you do, you get to the Buddha. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It's founded on our thoughts. It's based on our thoughts. If a man has ever thought with an evil thought, pain follows, like the wheel follows the hoof of the ox that draws the carriage. That's us. Pain follows us if we've had unresolved issues through life. That's the same as Jesus saying, if you come to the altar to leave a gift, what are you doing to do that for? What are you doing that for? You're looking for a better life. You're looking for good graces. And you remember you've got issues. Don't even look for a better life. Go resolve the stuff first, and then your Father who sees in secret, then life will automatically be better. The teachings are there at a very stark mental level. And I just want you to know that it's there. And to be careful not to get caught up in things, in modern trappings of things that people are making up. And if you look deeper, you go, wow, yeah, I see what's going on. People just looking for ways of trying to feel better. And of course, you're not going to follow people that don't have some kind of credibility in that kind of a group. And in a group like what I've got going on here, this is no longer a group thing anymore. This is a personal thing. This is everybody share your experiences, and it's your trip. Here's how we read it. Here's how we do it. It's no longer, here's what I say, follow me. It's not. It's, oh, here, empower yourself. You got to change your life. My life never changed listening to somebody tell me what to do. I had to find some way to get in my own head and do some work, and nobody ever told me that. The material did. People gave me all kinds of workarounds. Pray this, do this, think this, meditate that. What? Yeah, let's make up an analogy. A parable, maybe. Modern day parable. There is a group of people in a warehouse that was all closed up, and it's stuffy and hot. And people are like, oh, I'm suffocating and breathing, and it's so stuffy, and like you've been under the covers too long or something like that on a cold night, and you need to come out and get air. And suddenly somebody opens a window for a minute and then closes it. And, oh my gosh, yeah, that feels good. Yeah, everybody's happy about that. And you go back to what you're doing, but not long afterwards, you're like, God, it's hot and stuffy in here again. So this repeats a few times. Somebody finally comes along and says, yo, take that window down. Get it out. Okay? It's not opening the window that makes us feel better. It's the oxygen. Clear out the obstruction. Then we live through that higher awareness, through a third eye that is clear of perceptions. Then we see clearly and we live in that way. That's how far you can go with this. And also, I would encourage you to always, research this stuff on your own. As I was looking through videos, I saw things like, if you know Krishnamurti, he's been long gone, but, someone asking him the question about, the viability of the opening the third eye in the Kundalini yoga. And you can hear him whispering before he answers the question, geez, why do I have to answer these questions? So if you look into it a little bit, what I could find is that Kundalini was never a part of Hinduism originally, nor were the yogic exercises and all that. Those came about later. But early on, those were not a part. So there was something called Kundalini that was like circle or coiled snake or something like that, which sounds to me like it could represent a cycle, a pain cycle or something like that. But I haven't looked into it. But that was eventually that you would look at that and go, well, that's probably a good correlation between the two. A pain cycle, Kundalini. You're trying to resolve these issues in the mind. And that the practice really, it's a mental practice that would be like if you had a pain, something bothers you and you observe it. You bring it up, you watch it, you let it go. You observe it come, you watch it go. You continue to do this with the memory until at some point you look at it and you become so accustomed to seeing it. Like the other thing where you're getting used to something, you become so accustomed to it that it ceases to affect you. All right, something like that might not always work. It depends on the nature of it. If it's really severe and you need more, you might not, look at a repeated raping or something like that as something that you would get used to seeing. That's going to take a different kind of work. So it really depends on the nature of the memory and what you're holding and what the experience was and what you need to observe and how you need to observe it. You need to get outside yourself. Some things are just a lot more difficult, and it might take a little bit more work. And, at the same time, there could be somebody that is completely devastated and adversely affected in life by something so benign that you would go, oh my gosh, what is it? It is all mental, all right? We get stuck in our own heads. Frequency. This is what I want to say about frequency. We're in a sea of frequency. Here's what we do. We interact with only certain amounts. We've got 6 senses. Let's talk about them and how we observe the variations in frequencies. I don't think we always can. One of them is sense of smell. Some things smell good, some things smell bad. I don't know if that's high and low frequency or what. It's something that's happening at a quantum level. Sound. There's frequency there. There's a high frequency there's a point where frequency continues to rise. It'll get so high that pretty soon the ear can no longer hear it. It's still generating frequencies, radio waves and all kinds of stuff. They're all over out there. Space is made up of waves. So there's waves out there. We only hear ones in a certain frequency range. When they're in that range, they're audible. When they're in a certain range, they're visible. A high frequency would be ultraviolet and a low frequency would be red. No, violet. Ultraviolet is just outside. Infrared is just below. So if you're watching this come down in frequency, you would Or if you're watching a rainbow split, you would see it go, it's kind of harder to see it in a rainbow. It's kind of coarse. It's a little fuzzy. But if you were to observe frequencies in the visible range, it would start out coming from ultraviolet into violet, move through the entire color spectrum all the way down to red, and then into infrared, and then it keeps generating frequencies. It'll keep going lower and lower. We're not interacting with those until what? Until they become audible. There's frequency waves now that we're going to be hearing. All right. Between those right there, these are the senses that we're hearing things. Our ears are, picking up from the environment. Oh, yeah, all of that. Okay, now what we have is an emotional field. In this field that we're interacting with, this is where the sensations come from. We pick these up from the outside and we radiate them. This is a two-way street. This is how we flow in life. It comes from the central nervous system. We sense it. You feel it. It's an emotional feeling that guides you. This is what helps you decide what to do. Oh, that's a bad thing. I'm moving away from it. That's a good thing. I'm moving towards it. This is what guides us in life. We move away from bad, try to, and move towards good. I think also, and we have to be careful about this one because I know we get accustomed to each other, but people that are together and very close and have very tight-knit relationships can sense each other's feelings quite well. It's like you can't hide it. Of course, we also know each other's subtle differences so much it's easy to pick up on that stuff. But sometimes maybe you can sense it from a distance and go, wow, is everything all right? Well, no, as a matter of fact, it's not. You're like, wow, okay. So I think sometimes there's evidence of that being there, but it's pretty light, isn't it? It's not significant. But if we wanted to observe frequencies, again, all you do is observe your memories that are hurtful memories and find an emotional, figure the emotional state. Does it feel okay? You willing to talk about it? Is it bad? Is it something you want to hide away? That's it right there. It's just that easy. The stuff you don't like, the stuff you don't want to talk about, the stuff that you have your own walls up, they're your walls. They're your perceptions, and they're your creation of yourself, which is as within, so without, which is creating more of that. The measure you mete unto others will be likewise meted unto you. As within, so without. Same thing. So it's really that, the way to observe the change in frequency is really the way to observe the change in your emotional state is what you're really doing. Saying changing a frequency isn't really helping somebody. How do you feel? If you feel good and you're moving towards what makes you happy, you're on course. If not, then, something else is wrong. All right, think of this. Despair, fear, shame, anger, low frequencies, love, passion, compassion, appreciation, good frequency, high frequency. There's a couple of ideas I would look at to make a good comparison here of this. You can find places where you listen to this frequency. It's got a binaural beat of, this particular one to put your mind at a particular, alpha, beta, omega, whatever state, theta. And that if you listen to this, it gets you into that mind state and it helps you feel good, and people will swear by those. And I have listened to them before and went, oh yeah, this does feel good. You listen to it for a while, but if I listen to it for several weeks, at some point I find that it's in the background and my mind is back to what it was doing anyway. It is no longer as effective as it once was. Initially it was effective and it caused me to focus on it, but once it became just a part of my normal day routine, it didn't continue to interrupt my feelings and my emotional state. That the feelings were still there all along. And this was just a momentary way of shielding them that I eventually got used to. But it was a mental state, for me anyway, that I didn't keep after it and after it thinking this is what I need to, this is what raises my frequency because it makes me feel better. When you're really focusing on it, you do the same thing when you're doing a meditation. If you're focusing on a particular something, you're actually working your mind in the same way. So what you're really accomplishing is trying to find a place of clarity within your perceptions to work around the memories in all these cases. And you find some peace through there and go, oh yeah, this feels good. But you're never really addressing the bundle of memories themselves. You're trying to find a way to work around them. I'm doing this down here. So that's what that motion was. Okay, so if you stop at some point and go, okay, I'm trying to move around inside of this space I have that is this full of junk, and I'm trying to move around inside of it, and if I just get the junk out of the way, I have the entire space to run free. It's completely cleared out. Can you picture that? You have to continue to observe your own life. And then that emotional state that you're feeling, you're not only going to be, that is what is going to dictate your flow. You're going to find other people that are in that same category. You're going to be flowing in concert with people that are like your energy makeup. So as you change your energy makeup, it's going to change your flow, which means it's also going to change the people you might be with. So depending on how much you're going to change, this might change a lot of things in life, which is good. You go from the streets to a house. That's not a bad thing. You're going to change friends along the way. That's a good thing. Just know that in the end. It might not feel like it at the time, but that's one small step in a moment of a bigger picture that you must keep your eye on. Yeah, I'm going off the deep end here, aren't I? It's because I think that there is something that's more fundamental than Kundalini yoga, that it is a process that is effective in helping people feel better. And it provides a community for them. But in some cases, it also does what? It starts providing business. When spiritual practices become business practices, they're not spiritual practices anymore. So I have a problem with those kinds of things. If you have to pay to go to a center or something like that. I can understand giving donations to keep centers up, but I mean people that are getting paid to be gurus and things like that, and you listen to them and they're taking you through these courses. They're like the ministers of their field. They're like the preachers. They should get paid for that. They're teaching the people, I guess, yeah. But I see that. I'm not going to go to a church and give tithes to a preacher to tell me what the Bible says. I know what the Bible says, and I will go to my neighbor's house where the unwed mother has 4 kids and drop off some food. Okay, I had to show it. The Mahabharata. There it is. That's pretty much that would be the Holy Bible of Hinduism, but there's a lot more to it than this even. And you know what? Nowhere in here does it do anything with respect to yogic practices that you would find at Western yoga centers. That does not mean that yoga centers are bad or that people shouldn't go. What it means is that it has nothing to do with the origins of Hinduism. Yoga centers are not Hindu centers, Yeah. There's real purpose in it. It's a tough call, isn't it? There is so much purpose in it that there could be, and it could go wrong. And at the end of the day, if you are a seeker, you're going to find out that it's a rabbit hole. Yet at the same time, what's a rabbit hole for you might be somebody else's resting place, right where they want to be, right where they like to live, and right where the community is that they want to be. So that's the real deal right there. You may like it, you might want to stay there, but if you're looking for something that might make sense across the board, that if you interpret it from Hindu material, it comes out the way I described it. And if you go downstream to Buddha, who took this and just simplified the heck out of it, you'll find it there. You'll find it in Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching. It goes on. You find this teaching at a core level. You find it Jesus, not understood, a different genre. So I want to be very clear about a couple of things. Number one, I think when somebody thinks that the pineal gland is somehow being activated, that they're on that outside course, that's not really what is happening. That what is happening is that what we want to do is the third eye is actually the bundle of experiences that we live through. And what is the quality and the nature of them? If life is not good, we need to change the quality and the nature of that particular one at that time. And when something else acts out, we change that one and something else and something else. If you don't have all that stuff, you won't have to do that stuff. If you have a lot of that stuff, you'll have to do that a lot. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. Also, imagine this. Somebody could find enlightenment this easily. You're living life looking outward, not realizing that the higher awareness is there. We come from there. We live life through our memories. If your memories are good, you're constantly living in the physical world, but everything's happy. But if at any moment in time, while that happy life is in place, you realize, oh, wait a minute, there's a higher awareness up here. Boom, you've just made that transition without having to clean anything out. It could be that way for some people. So some people that say it's just that easy, they might be experiencing something like that. It's going to be individual for every person. Let me give you a parallel. If you know the Tao Te Ching, or if you're not familiar with it, I'll tell you. Right off the bat, there's the Tao. And people talk about that and think that that is some sort of something that you get into or get out of. How can I get into the Tao? How can I get into the flow? Like it's the zone or something like that. And what they need to understand is that you are always in the Tao. You're never out of that flow. You are always having that experience. And you might stop and ponder and change the way you feel about that experience, but you're always in that experience. The third eye, you need to clear it out. You don't activate it or deactivate it. You are always living through the experiences of that bundle of what we call a third eye. It is never active and deactive. What it is unaware, clogged, or aware, pure, aware, clogged, somewhere along the way, that sort of a thing. Does that make sense? People do it at the level that they want to. And I went for all of it. I went for the gusto. At some point, it was like there was so much in there that once I got out the big stuff, it was like, well, might as well just keep at it, you know. All right. And you know what? It's taken a lifetime. It didn't happen overnight. At the same time, I know that this material is going to be helpful for people, but that pineal gland is to regulate sleep. The only way to reactivate it is to stop taking the blue sleep aids for about a week until things return back to normal. That would be my advice there. To actually activate it, it's always active. It's not deactive. There's nothing there that's open or closed in the pineal. What there is the awareness of self and life and the flow of life, which comes through the third eye, which is the perceptions that we live through. Honestly, it's always active. It's never deactive. It's whether or not we're aware of it and understand that the quality of that experience is based on that bundle of memories and the way we're holding them emotionally. And to change the emotional state changes the flow. And that is hard and easy. All right, well, I wanted to say that. I know that it's a big thing out there. You know what, I went ahead and put that video from YouTube up here, the Krishnamurti question number 2 from Question and Answer meeting, Brockwood Park, UK. This is in August of 1979. The question is it true that yoga will awaken deeper energy, which is called Kundalini?
Crazy questions. Will the practice of yoga, as it is being done in Europe and in America, help to bring about a spiritual awakening? Is it true that yoga will awaken deeper energy, which is called Kundalini? May I read it once more? You don't, not necessary? Right? There. From the sublime to the ridiculous.
I'll go ahead and put that Krishnamurti in there. Yeah, I'm in that camp right there. If you go through and look at a lot of stuff, you'll see that stuff came about later on. It wasn't original. And it is, yeah, it's like, it's not a lot different than maybe somebody somewhere else in the world saying, you have to step really outside of everything to understand what I'm about to say here and to look at it this way. That Westerners using Kundalini from Hinduism roots, really, which are downstream from actual Hinduism roots. That's an evolution of Hinduism in more recent times. For them to use that in that manner is akin to somebody else in the world that has no belief in anything Abrahamic whatsoever. Don't believe in God or Jesus or anything. I don't have that belief. But It would be the same thing as if somebody said, but I go ahead and pray to Jesus anyway because it makes me feel better. And you would go, okay, well, I get that. I get that that happens. But it's your conviction that makes it happen, really. And it's not the whole package. There's something bigger inside of there. And at least, with the Jesus stuff, that's different because people are looking outward. With the Hindu stuff, you're looking inward. But when you're looking inward, what are you looking at? Make sure to look at what the perceptions are in the life experiences. At the same time, knowing that if your perceptions are fine, you'll be listening to me going, I don't know what you're talking about, Dan. So I get that. That's the way it works. I also will say that, as I'm researching for this video, I just take a quick look at things. It's been a long time since I did the Hindu thing, and I've been so focused on what I'm doing here. I just wanted to refresh a bit. But what I see is that there are large communities, channels of people that have gathered together, of like-minded people that are trying to heal through Kundalini. I still think it's a workaround, but I see what it is a community of people that are doing positive things, working together. For me, Kundalini is not aggressive enough. I'm going to go ahead and just blast everything out. I think that my issues in life had nothing to do with what they're talking about. My issues, when I look at my life, had to do with the way I held the emotional state of my memories, that is what I was living through, and that is what needed to be rectified, and that going straight after that is what did the job, despite the fact that it was not comfortable to do. And then finally, just to end this off, that, the whole idea with Indian gurus saying that if you can activate that Kundalini, that it can make you go crazy, that and people, there could be, maybe are, you can see it right there, the logical fallacy coming in. People that are in the insane asylum are there because they've activated because they've opened up whatever it is, and the Kundalini energy is just flowing through them, and they're crazy. And you have to look at that and go, that's kind of on a par, really, with Western idea of demon possession or something like that. That to me, you have to look at that mentally and go, really? Do you want to go there? Do you want to comprehend that as something that is a reality, or do you want to question it? I think that there's reasons to question things. I have supernatural, or what would be called supernatural experiences, but I believe that they're natural, and that they work a lot better when I understand them that way, instead of just waiting for them to see if my guardian angel graces me or something. Yeah, it's there all the time. There's a place you get to when you understand this material, that there's something in place all the time. And but then there could be people, again, they're already there. They didn't have a lot to do. They were able to rectify a couple of thought processes, and whoosh, boom, they're there. Meanwhile, you have to come from a faraway place. They're raised below the top of the mountain. They have to get to the top. You're raised in the cesspool. You got to crawl out of there first and make it across the ground and make it through the foothills and make it through the first set of ranges. And yeah, you got a longer path to go. We do. All right. See you in the next video.